But Fani Willis certainly isn't qualified to be doing that.
The House votes against a big piece of the Biden administration's green energy agenda.
9 Democrats joined all present House Republicans to pass a bill rejecting a pause on new liquefied natural gas export projects. Republicans say the move by the administration would empower U.S. adversaries and hurt the economy. Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt represents a district with a significant amount of natural gas production.
There is not a single country that produces LNG and oil safer and cleaner than what we do right here in the United States.
Some Democrats argue the pause is good for the environment, and the White House says the pause gives the administration time to evaluate the impacts of liquefied natural gas on energy costs and climate change. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
There are lots of questions about how a woman without a ticket got past security and on a commercial flight in Nashville. Carmen Roberts has more.
The TSA is ramping up security at Nashville International Airport after a woman without a boarding pass made it past security and all the way onto an American Airlines flight to Los Angeles. The agency learned the woman jumped an unmanned checkpoint where people are required to show their IDs and that security screened her before she boarded the flight. Yet she still got on without a ticket. The FBI questioned the woman when she arrived in Los Angeles, but has not filed charges.
A former Air Force strategic missile officer believes the United States has the military capability, but not the political will to counter potential threats made by Russia in outer space.
On Thursday, the White House publicly confirmed that Russia has obtained a, quote, troubling emerging anti-satellite weapon, but that such a device is not currently operational. The White House confirmed this intelligence after a warning Wednesday from the Republican head of the House Intelligence Committee, Ohio Representative Mike Turner, who urged the Biden administration to declassify information about what he called a serious national security threat. Gordon Klingenschmidt is a former Air Force strategic missile officer.
First of all, it happened on Joe Biden's watch, and his signaling weakness or even intimidation of Russia is causing further aggression by them. Compared to when Trump was in office, Russia was afraid to invade Ukraine a second time on Trump's watch. But as soon as Biden got in there, America is weak, so Russia can be aggressive.
Klingenschmidt says America has the means to deter Russia.
There are classified assets that I'm aware of that I've seen and helped manage on our side.
But Klingenschmidt says there needs to be a credible deterrent.
To have a deterrent strategy, you have to have two elements, of course. You have to have the capability, which I think we have, and you have to have the will, which I don't think we have. When Joe Biden is mealy-mouthed and isn't addressing this, isn't publicizing this, it takes a congressman from Dayton, Ohio, to actually bring this to America's attention. Joe Biden should be the one taking the lead on this issue.
I'm Chad Groening.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. How must you pew?
Well, good evening, everybody, wherever you are, or however you're listening or even watching. We are in the studio of First Amendment Radio. The studio cam is on, and we are in the chat rooms and engaged to just spend some time talking about current events, whatever anyone would like to talk about, who wants to, you can text me at that number right below my chin there at any time during the broadcast, and I will respond immediately on the air, or at least as immediately as I can. Or you can engage in the First Amendment Radio chat rooms, the one at YouTube and Rumble and also at FirstAmendmentRadio.net /Moby or /chat if you're on a computer. Okay, well, we have news, current events, and things like that, and we just pray that the Holy Spirit be leading us and be in our conversation, because I'm here to fellowship, really. And part of that fellowship is I have to, instead of waiting for someone else to talk, I have to talk when nobody else is. So that means I have to be ready to have things to talk about. So I've been sitting in here in the studio for about an hour now, getting things all lined up. Got a nice hot cup of coffee, which will get cold before I drink it all, as usual, just to keep my whistle wet, if nothing else. I was looking at Proverbs and thinking about the day of wrath or the day of tribulation even. And it says that riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. And the only place we can get enough righteousness to deliver us from death is from God's own Son. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way. Now, anyone who would read that and go, yeah, man, that's beyond perfect. No, it's only his imputed righteousness that makes us perfect. And his righteousness will direct our way. But the wicked, those who reject his righteousness, reject Jesus Christ and his propitiatory sacrifice for their sins, it says the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. Whew, I thank God for the righteousness of Christ that saves me from falling by my own wickedness. Now, in this life, as we walk, if we do wickedly, which we all have done, and we know that there are repercussions in this life for wicked things if we do them. So we want to definitely, that's one motivation for staying away from evil things. Yeah, it works pretty good. You add a little fear of God to that, and you want to learn to walk in his righteousness as quickly as you possibly can. Continuing on here, it says, when a wicked man dieth, his expectation shall perish. Yeah. And who is the wicked man? Those that reject the gift of God, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and the price he paid for their sins. And they choose to, first of all, think that they're good enough if they got themselves deluded into thinking that somehow. But they're going to die in their sins. So all of their expectations, all of the things they hoped for in their whole life, all of the things that they gathered to themselves, all the money they have in the bank, all the property that they have on record, all of their expectations will perish. And the hope of the unjust men perishes. The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked cometh in his stead. An hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there is shouting. By the blessing of the upright the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. Boy, do we see that today. That's why we need to flee the cities if you are in the cities. Well, that's our word for today. Let's see. We have, say hello to anybody. Good to see you there, Shelley R. in the chat room. And, that's all in the chat room right now. And to everyone who's watching but not chatting, welcome. Okay, Well, we might as well just go to and start out on the lighter side with the Babylon Bee. And I haven't read this yet, so we're reading it together for the first time. Let's see. Christian celebrities. Where are they now? Oh, do you recognize any of these Christian celebrities? I think that's Michael W. Smith there. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? Anybody remember Michael W. Smith? Yes. See. Time flies. One moment you're a kid consuming copious amounts of top-tier Christian entertainment content, and before you know it, you're middle-aged with a spouse, some kids, and a mortgage. Well, some of us are way beyond that, aren't we? Yeah. Let's see. What happened to all those beloved Christian personalities from your childhood? Read more. Well, I'm curious, and we got time. Yeah. See, where are they now? Okay. Time flies one moment. Yep, I read that part. The Babylon Bee has tracked down the following Christian celebrities from childhood to find out where they are now. Yep, I was right. Michael W. Smith. Still going west, despite no longer being a young man. Bob the Tomato. Yeah. Do you remember? I remember Bob the Tomato from my own children, but not from my childhood. Now, John Arthur would remember Bob the Tomato from his childhood because, I think I'm about 20 years older than he is. He's the other Arthur on First Amendment Radio Network, but we're not directly related. He's Nordic and I'm Germanic, but we are both barbarians. And that much has been established. Okay, anyway, Bob the Tomato, working at Dollar General in rural Virginia. That's funny. Oh, Salty the Songbook. Lost his job to some hotshot video projector. Last seen heading for a Reformed church, hoping for a fresh start. Let's see. Buttercream Gang. I never heard of them, but I'm sure somebody out there must have. That must go even younger than John Arthur, for all I know. After moving to L.A., became involved in a nasty turf war with the Bloods. Ultimately left gang life to open a chain of Italian restaurants. The Buttercream Gang, for all of you that know. McGee? Who's McGee? I have no idea who McGee is, but it's not J. Vernon McGee, I'm pretty sure. Died of a drug overdose in 2008. It must be a cartoon character because I don't think J. Vernon McGee was even alive in 2008. I guess that really dates me, if you know who J. Vernon McGee is. I think they're still playing his stuff somewhere. It's probably still on the internet, but too bad he was a futurist. Yeah. And anyway, that's all I'm going to say about J. Vernon McGee. May he rest in peace. Let's see. Power Team. Must be some more cartoons that I missed out on. The guys who ripped phone books for Jesus. Oh, I think I have a shred of a memory for that, right? Pun intended. The guys who ripped phone books for Jesus are still spreading the gospel by now tearing menus in half at Denny's. Okay. Let's see. 5 Iron Frenzy. Communist atheist. I have no idea what that means. If anybody knows, give me a clue in the chat room or a call in, because I have no idea what 5 Iron Frenzy is and how they would turn out to be communist atheists today. They must have been liberal Christians or something like that. All right. Derek Webb. Gay communist atheist? Don't know who he is, but sounds like he had a bad end. Phil Vischer. Not a gay communist atheist yet. Check back next year. Ooh, I don't know who this guy is either. Michael Tate. I think he was one of those guys that had something to do with Jesus Freak or something. Let's see. Defeated former Newsboys frontman Peter Furler in hand-to-hand combat, thereby becoming their new leader. Ah, that's right. I remember the Newsboys. Of course, I was in my 30s or 40s then. Okay, I still like the Newsboys today, but I haven't listened to their stuff. But I really like the Newsboys way back in the day. Yeah, they had some pretty good stuff, music-wise, that is. Donut Man. Here we go again. Another thing I have no clue who that is. Convicted of using a donut shop as a front to run a massive money laundering scheme. These are supposed to be Christian icons, people. This is not a good report for some of them. Junior Asparagus. Oh, he must have been part of VeggieTales. Okay. Jailed on drug charges. Joshua Harris. Kiss Christianity, then civil society goodbye, taking up residence at a national park in rural Washington. I think I heard of him. Yeah, he's what do they call him? Slips my mind. Toby Mac. He's another one of those Jesus freak guys. Still living in extreme days. Coming at you all like a now slightly arthritic whirlwind. Meaning he's getting old. But I still think I'm older than Toby Mac. I'm pretty sure I am. I'll see. Bible Man. Rebooted as a black woman. Yeah. Kevin Sorbo. The Hercules actor fell into a period of anonymity before appearing in a couple videos by a Christian satire outfit known as the Babylon Bee. Yeah. No, I think I follow Kevin Sorbo on X, formerly Twitter. Kirk Cameron. See, arose to become king of the old guard of Christian celebrities, though that title is purportedly disputed by Kevin Sorbo. They can arm wrestle for it. Oh, that wasn't bad. That was pretty funny. Hope everybody got a few laughs out of that. Now we get into the serious stuff. Yeah. Unless somebody... good to see you here, No Bucks. And Judy in the other chat room, in the First Amendment Radio chat room. It's hard for me to read that color. Never heard of them either, she says. Good old Buttercream Gang. They were good. So, see, somebody knows who some of these people are. I'm not you, it's Judy. Good to see you, Judy. Thanks for joining us here. So that's what happened to some of your Christian celebrities. And there are some bad reports on some other ones too, but we won't go into that tonight. Maybe the Babylon Bee will make this a monthly edition so we can find out where they all went and what happened to them. Yes. We can get the backslider report on some of them, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? So reconsidering. Okay, that's that. That's the Babylon Bee. We do have our redacted report tonight, so maybe we'll jump into that before we get into any serious articles here. So this is our report from the gal at Redacted. She says, "Happy Monday. We're back. We were off last week. I did notice. Because I thought, oh no, they stopped doing it. They got too busy. Well, obviously, they got busy for a week. They said, we were off last week while our children had a school break. But we're back in time for a busy news week. Let's go." And I hope they're not sending their children to public school. I have to, I hope not. They need to be shaken up and waken up if they are, but maybe they're not. We hope not anyway. Let's see. In case you missed it, giddy up. Yes, says Kramer. Okay, in case you missed it, Ursula von der Leyen is expected to announce a bid for a second term as president of the European Commission. Please, no. Yes, once was enough. But I like saying her name, though. Ursula von der Leyen. Yes. It's a cool sounding name. You got to admit. At least she has that if she has nothing else. But I don't know. The truckers don't want her back. Neither do the farmers. And neither do all the people who have been put out of work because they have no energy in Germany. And many other reasons that they don't want her back, because of the same reason we don't want Joe Biden back, because of the influx of illegal aliens in almost every one of the Western European nations. Yeah. Okay, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill that forbids diplomatic relations with Syria so that the U.S. can go right on illegally occupying and bombing Syria. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the House of Representatives, too. Now, I don't really know what that's all about, but I have a feeling it has something to do with us continuing to give to hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to Israel so they don't have to spend their budget surplus, right? We have to borrow money to give it to them. But I'm sure it has something to do with that mess that's going on over there. Okay, the Brazilian ambassador in Israel is going to get a lecture from President Benjamin Netanyahu because President Lula da Silva said that Israel is conducting a genocide in Gaza. Yes, it's a very contentious thing that's going on over there in the Mideast. Everybody's picking sides but me. I'm on God's side, and God is allowing it. Therefore, his hand is in it. But I do pray for the children and the innocents and God's people that are caught on both sides of that mess, whether they're in Israel or whether they're in Gaza. Yeah. God will keep his hand on his people. And in the end, they will be resurrected. Yes. Yes, Judy says, I like Cliff and Natalie. Yeah, this is her newsletter, Natalie's newsletter. Do they homeschool their children? Do you know? If not, I just wondered because of the comment above, and I hope they do. They seem like they're not really Christians. They're conservatives, but I don't know. Don't see any witness coming out of their mouth, but I do like them, and I like their news report. Although I'm not, we depart on some things, but anyway, I think they have good news stories a lot of the time. And even if she does look like a little girl with those glasses on, she reminds me of my granddaughter, because she's got those big glasses on. Makes her look like a child, kind of, but obviously a young woman. Okay, moving on. The Brazilian ambassador in Israel is going to get... I just read that one. Next one. The UK is using AI to speed up background checks on military personnel to help boost enrollment during its enrollment crisis. I guess they're having the same problem over there that we're having over here in America, an enrollment crisis in the military. I mean, I would not advise any of my children or grandchildren grandchildren now, but to join the military because who wants to fight for the New World Order and Joe Biden? Who wants to be part of the Antichrist army? Because that's what it amounts to. I like Florida's got the idea now. The governor keeps doing good things over there. he has a Florida military that's different from the National Guard for Florida, so that the president can't take them away. But every state should organize its own militia, because that's basically what it is. It is the Florida militia. And he should have used the word militia, and if more states would join. I think some of the states, they should all collude together to all start their own military and call it the militia, and let it be the militia, but be organized, and everybody of age would have to learn how to use a weapon and be available for on-call in case your state is invaded, that you have a citizen militia ready to go. Yeah, that was the purpose of the militia. It's written into the Constitution. That's what the Second Amendment is all about. And whatever the Constitution says about the militia, yeah, that's really what it was all about. The government used to support the militia until it became Democrat. Yeah, they don't want any competition. They want to take the guns away from the citizens instead of arming them. But people trained in arms are less likely to abuse those arms. Okay, moving on. New York Governor Kathy Hochul had to assure businesses that what happened to Donald Trump's businesses won't happen to theirs, because New York is already viewed as a hostile business environment, according to The Hill. And that's the truth. It's like the government there. I mean, Donald Trump, they said, oh, you can't set up any business. Well, he won't. He'll set up his businesses in Florida or other states, and he'll move all his corporations out of New York. That's what they basically did to him, because they can only, and besides, I think they're not going to win on any appeal. I don't think it'll stand on appeal. And you know what? We'll continue with this report when we get back from some messages. And while you're taking a break, get another refill on your cup of coffee, make sure you go over to my website, crosstheborder.org or nicholasarthur.wordpress.com, and press the follow button there, okay? Also like and follow wherever you're watching. Secrets of the Rapture. Is there a 500-year-old conspiracy? A propaganda machine so pervasive and entrenched, yet so elusive that the entire world could be taken in by it, working in plain sight, but unseen by the world for what it truly is? If prophecy is God-given history in advance, why does the prophecy that has conquered the age also exclude nearly 2,000 years of history? What is it that they are afraid that the light of history will reveal? To understand our place in time and prophecy, we must look in history for an interpretation, that which stands the test of time, that which agrees with the Word of God, and history has proven to be true. When cunning fables and fearful speculations are removed from our sight, then we may clearly see what is truly expressed in Bible prophecy, both that which has been fulfilled and that which has yet to come. God's express word is the sword that must be wielded to remove the scales from the eyes and dispel the darkness of deceitful conjecture. Secrets of the Rapture was written to expose that which the spirit of the age has conjured out of the darkness to blind the eyes of the church in the world today. Secrets of the Rapture, Deconstructing Pre-Tribulation Dispensational Futurism by yours truly, Nicholas Arthur, is now available at lulu.com and Amazon. Secrets of the Rapture.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. Okay, well, we were going through this newsletter when we left. See, Judy said, I'm on God's side too, but the genocide in Gaza breaks my heart. Yes, it is heartbreaking. I agree. And I don't think that American money, because they're robbing us to give it to them now, because, you know, they're not, I mean, they tax you for it, but by them spending and creating more money and giving it away, that creates more inflation. So the hidden tax, well, is it really hidden? Everyone feels it, but most people don't realize that it's another way of taxing, is to inflate the money, so they can just give it away. Hey, let's borrow money to give away to support this war or whatever. Yeah, it's egregious to have to support something out of your own labor that you find reprehensible. And the war in Gaza, I want nothing to do with it, either side. Okay, let's see. We left off here. Oh, Hawaii is considering a new tourist tax of $25 per person in response of the Lahaina fires. What? They're trying to now dissuade people from coming to Hawaii and spending their hard-earned money. They're going to have a tourist tax? Huh. Another liberal government with one more really bad idea. Okay, the U.S. says it will veto a UN resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. So, yeah. Well, if they're funding the war, I guess why would they want a ceasefire? After all, somebody's got to sell them weapons. And if they have to rip off the American taxpayer to pay for those weapons so they can get rich, because that's what's going on here, is every time there's a reason to spend money, a reason to fund a war, everybody dips in, everybody grifts, and gets in on the plunder. That's what happens. Okay. And that was it. Let's see. Gold. Oh, it's up again. It dropped back down below 2,000, but now it's back up above 2,000. So there it is. Someday it's really going to be valued at what it's worth. Let's see. Silver, $23. Nothing to get excited about there. But unfortunately, I wish gold would keep up with inflation. But at this time, it's not. Although over the last 20 years, it has outdone inflation. So in the long run, it always does. In the short run, sometimes not so much. Okay, well, that's that. That's the redacted roundup there. Yes. Just checking out what showed up in my box here. Let's see. True News. Medvedev vows total war. True News over there beating them war drums. Boy, they love it. They won't be happy until it's all out war, World War III. But according to them, we're already in World War III. And I hear that kind of nonsense from other people. Obviously, they don't know much about war or what a world war would look like. Okay, let's see. Now live. Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump cooks California. Huh. Well, that sounds interesting. And who put this up here? I don't know. I guess it's Tucker Carlson on Rumble. I'll have to check that out later, but see what that's about. If it's interesting, we can talk about it tomorrow night. Okay. Text number right there. If you want to join in, you want to comment, or you can Skype me at Nicholas Arthur and you see the spelling of my name there. There's no space and either, if you just put it up either way, it'll probably come up on Skype, because I'm not sure anybody else in the United States has my name spelled that way. So you can find me on Skype real easy, and you can Skype into the show if you want. You could even, if you show your face, I'll show your face on the screen. Otherwise, I'll just go with voice, and it'll be like a phone call. So if that guy wants to Skype me, the ghost caller wants to Skype me, yeah, come on. Show your face, ghost caller. Or anybody else. If you can Skype in and be my guest for a while. Do you know what Skype is, or is that really old too? I'm sure in radio and TV, Skype is used a lot for putting guests on the air. So I think a lot of people do use Skype still. I know there's other ones out there, but I haven't really got into them. Let's see. But I do have Skype, and it works. All right. Or at least it did work. Oh, yes. And, Greg Anthony, unfortunately, was not able to get on because the internet was down where he's at last Wednesday. So he should be on this Wednesday. What are the odds that he'll miss 2 weeks in a row? But boy, when you're only on once a week and you miss your time slot, I guess that's if you had to count on that as some kind of revenue driver, it would really put a dent in your plan there. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Now, let's talk about interest on the debt. Okay, and this is from Sovereign Man. I'm still going to call it Sovereign Man. The ink was barely dry on the Treaty of Paris in the year 1763, when the financial panic set in. Government ministers across Europe began taking stock of their disastrous finances, and the picture was gruesome. This was before the French Revolution, obviously. The world had been at war with itself for nearly a decade, and though the conflict became officially known as the 7 Years' War, it might as well have been called World War Zero, because it involved just about every major power on the planet. France, Russia, Britain, Spain, Portugal, and Prussia in Europe, and and the Mughal Empire. The Mughal Empire? Okay, India, and even the Ojibwe and Cherokee tribes in North America. Funny, I haven't heard about that war. That's why I like the Sovereign Man. He always comes up with these historical tidbits that are very interesting. See, all these people fought in that war, and the conflict cost everyone dearly, especially France. France was still technically the West's dominant superpower at the war's start in 1756. However, decades of overspending had taken a toll, and French finances were showing signs of strain. As the 7 Years' War raged on, France had to borrow more and more money to pay for it. Gee, I wonder who they borrowed that money from. I wonder. Could it... the Rothschilds... maybe the Vatican banker, maybe the Antichrist himself. As a matter of fact, the Antichrist once left Rome and set up his government in France. Did you know that? Yeah. Anyway, moving on here. French finances were showing signs of strain. As the 7 Years' War raged on, France had to borrow more and more money to pay for it. So both the national debt as well as its annual interest bill rose quickly. You know, and that was back in the day when they had to borrow real money. There was none of this fiat stuff going around. Yeah, you had to have real money to pay your bills. You had to have gold and silver. That's right. So that's, like I said, that was back in the day when you borrowed money, you were borrowing real money. By the end of the war, the debt had grown so much that France was spending over half of its annual budget just to pay interest, which means obviously they were spending more on interest than on military. Economic historian Neil Ferguson has famously commented on this critical milestone. If you really want to see when an empire is getting vulnerable, the big giveaway is when the costs of it servicing its debt exceed the cost of the defense budget. Throughout history, several empires in decline have reached that point, including France, the Ottoman Empire, and many more. And quite disturbingly, the latest empire set to join that club will be the United States, most likely this year. I've been saying this for a while, but it's now mainstream news given that the Wall Street Journal said Friday that interest costs are on pace to surpass defense this year. But you know what? I think there is a difference. The difference is we're borrowing fiat money that everyone knows is created out of thin air. So everyone knows that the debt will never be repaid, but they just want to collect the interest, and that's why they have an income tax. And that's why the income tax was introduced about the same time that the Federal Reserve Act was introduced. That's it. And that's, if you remember the Grace Commission from the Reagan administration, and the outcome of the Grace Commission was that none of the taxes that you paid went into the federal coffers to pay for the government. Yeah, that's what the Grace Commission found, that 100% of the income tax was used to pay the debt. And they didn't like that Grace Commission. And Reagan was going to do away with the Department of Education, but he got shot before he could do that. And New World Order George Bush stepped in as vice president, pretty much ran the nation, while Reagan was kept on drugs and out of the way for the remainder of his presidency. You could have watched that go on if you were alive at that time, which I was. So, but anyway, interest costs are on pace to surpass the defense budget this year. The U.S. national debt currently stands at $34.3 trillion, a whopping 122% of U.S. GDP. That means that the debt is 22% bigger than the entire income of America. Yeah. Or our gross domestic product. And as I've written extensively, the Congressional Budget Office forecasts an additional 20+ trillion in new debt over the next decade. That's an absurd level of debt. But most alarming part is how quickly the annual interest bill is increasing. Yes, it does tend to get exponential when you reach a certain point. But that's the idea of enslaving the nations and the peoples that the Antichrist cooked up. Oh, they wanted it so bad. When it took them 100 years to get in America and take over I call it the coup of the U.S. Treasury. Yeah, the Federal Reserve coup of the U.S. Treasury, because that is exactly what happened. 15 or 20 years ago, interest on the national debt was fairly trivial a portion of the federal government's annual budget. But in 2024, as the journal corroborates, interest will likely surpass defense spending. And it's just going to keep getting worse. The U.S. government is falling into the same trap that plagued France in the 1760s and 1770s. Each year, America will have to borrow more money just to be able to make interest payments on the money they've already borrowed. Yeah, you can't borrow to make interest payments. Once you start that, that's when you're hyper interest or hyperinflation. Yeah, that's when your debt becomes parabolic. America will have to borrow more money just to be able to make the interest payments on the money that they've already borrowed. But like I said, the huge difference is, because France would have never got this far if it was real money. Neither would have America, because there just probably isn't enough real money in the world. Yeah, that's what happens. That's what fiat usury money does. It makes you spend money, and money that doesn't even exist, because America could never have borrowed that much real money from anybody. But they did it because they could, and they knew it was being created out of thin air, and that's why they know that, as my friend Alfred Adask used to say, that what can't be paid won't be paid. And now it's going to come to the point where America is going to refuse to pay the interest, because we're just going to go, no, we're not paying you interest on this. We know you created that money out of thin air. You loaned us nothing. The credit belonged to us that you loaned it on. So basically, we loaned it to ourselves, and we'll forgive ourselves. That's right. That's what it's coming to. And that's why most nations are cashing in any debt that the America owed to them, and have been cashing it in for the last 2 decades. But they could read the tea leaves, definitely. And no other nation's going to loan America any other money, so they just have to keep borrowing it out of the genie's lamp, And who has the genie's lamp? Well, the Antichrist and his banking cabal. That's who. But they don't care, because they want to crash America. They want to reboot it all and introduce their one world CBDC, Mark of the Beast monetary system, where they can control every person individually on the entire planet. That's what the Antichrist has always wanted, and that's what he still wants. Him and his shadow government. And all the idiots that are duped in America that somehow think that's a good idea, but they really don't know what it is that they think they want. It certainly is not what they think it is. Okay, 15, 20 years, the national debt will read that part. Keeps getting worse. Think about it. They have to go deeper in debt just to avoid default. Crazy, right? And to really understand the implications, it's critical to ask the question, where will all the new debt come from? Who exactly is going to lend the U.S. government 20+ trillion? Well, one potential source is the U.S. economy itself. The government could borrow money from banks, businesses, and even individuals, but that comes at a significant opportunity cost. Well, why borrow it when they can steal it like they're doing right now? I mean, they're borrowing more than they can steal, really, to tell you the truth. That's why it seems it's nothing to them. Oh, let's give Israel $6 billion. Oh, another $25 billion for Ukraine. Yeah, whatever. Oh, you hate America? Here, we'll give you some money. Can we buy your friendship? Oh, that didn't work either. You know, it's go. Oh, let us fund the UN. Let us fund NATO. Yeah. Anybody got any problems in the world? We'll borrow money to give it to you, and we know you'll never pay us back because you haven't yet. So, yeah, that's what's going on out there. Economists call this the crowding out effect. The idea is that when a government borrows tons of money, it essentially monopolizes a nation's savings, leaving fewer resources for the productive economy to put to work. And that's a pretty high opportunity cost. The alternative is for the central bank, i.e. Federal Reserve, to create trillions of dollars of new money. That's what they've opted for. Then use that new money to buy treasury bonds. This way, the banks can keep making housing loans. Investors can keep their money in the stock market. The Fed simply creates new money out of thin air, then loans it to the Treasury. $20 trillion is a ton of money, more than 50% the size of the entire U.S. economy. So clearly, if the Federal Reserve creates such a vast sum of new money, the end result will be a lot of inflation. It has been a lot of inflation. He says, I've written about this before. We experienced a peak of 9% inflation when the Fed created $5 trillion in 2020, 2021. So how high will inflation be if they create 20 plus trillion more? No one knows for sure, but it probably won't be their famous 2% target. Yes, now this isn't a cause for panic, he says. On the contrary, given that there is such a strong case to be made for future inflation, there are plenty of sensible ways to prepare for it, potentially even benefit from it financially. Governments and central banks, for example, are fantastic at going into debt and conjuring new money out of thin air, but they can't summon a single barrel of oil into existence, nor clap their hands and make more productive technology appear. That's the truth. Yes, indeed. Yeah, let me see. Got any going on in the chat room here? Nope. Okay. In an era where politicians, central bankers have to create a tidal wave of money and debt just to avoid default, it's sensible to have exposure to scarce, critical resources that stand the test of time. These are known as real assets. And it just happens that many of them are selling at historically low prices. Like gold and silver right now are historically low, especially when you add inflation in. They're historically low right now. Although to get silver, you have to now pay some premiums, but they're still low with even that. So if you got 100,000 in the bank, or 20 or 30 or 40 or $500,000 or $2 million in the bank, I would start trading it in. I would take this man's advice and start trading it in for what is known as real assets. Because digits in a bank account are not real assets. Even cash is better than digits, but you still don't want to keep all of your wealth in cash. That's for sure. So, anyway, good advice there from Sovereign Man. We can close that one. Yes. Okay. Okay, well, I'm getting to the end of the first hour here. Let's see, Judy says, I bought some silver maples and Indians yesterday. First time in a long time. God's money. It's amazing that the economy hasn't crashed yet. Any day, I guess. Scary. Yeah, well, what's more scary is the 20 million illegal aliens in our country, and many of them may be plants by China and other countries that hate us, or even, that might be planning some attacks from within our nation. It's a great possibility, and China Joe got paid millions of dollars. Him and his family got paid tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, God knows how much it is, to sell us out. Yeah, sold us out. He's a traitor. We have a traitor, a treasonous traitor in the White House. And I hope that, I pray to God that we can make it through this administration and get into one that's more favorable to God's people and sanity. And that wouldn't be hard to do with either Trump or, what's his name, Kennedy. They're both old-time Democrats as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know which one would be better, to be honest with you. It's hard to say. Okay, let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, I got a couple articles here, and we'll look at these. It's past time for Washington to come to his senses by Paul Craig Roberts. And you know what? We'll pick up in this article here when we get back from, we're going to take a break. So, hope you guys are all enjoying First Amendment Radio during the day. Some of you probably listen in at different times when you're busy working out in your field or on your job, when you can listen to the radio. You can listen on your smartphone if you go to FirstAmendmentRadio.net /Moby. You can listen to the audio stream. You can go to the chat page there if that's all you have, because I know a lot of people today don't have computers. They do all their computing on their phones. I guess that's pretty handy. I'm just not used to that yet, and probably will never get used to it. But but I do use my phone as a radio to listen to a lot of other things, even besides First Amendment Radio. But okay, well, here comes that break. I'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Arthur, and I'd like to introduce you to my latest book, Reformed Prophecy Interpretation, an apology for Reformed premillennial historicism in the 21st century. As with primitive biblical Christianity, historicism is the method of prophecy interpretation restored with the advent of the Protestant Reformation, and had become so widely held that for a long time it was called the Protestant view. My book is not so much about the errors of dispensationalism or amillennialism. Rather, it is about the historicist alternative to understanding many of the same passages from the vantage point of prophecy fulfilled in history. For those that desire more than mere hypotheses, bolstered with conjectured speculation, those who require explicit biblical exegesis and verified historical fulfillment, and are not willing to accept speculation as anything other than what it is. Speculation, not truth. This book is for you. Over the last century, this method of interpretation has become almost completely forgotten, even by Protestants, in the face of a method that is based almost entirely on future speculation, rather than fulfilled prophecy in history. In my book, I examine the reasons for this and investigate some of the prophecy which has been fulfilled in the interim, as well as present an apology for Reformed premillennial historicism to the 21st century. If you're interested in a copy of my book, you can go to my website, crosstheborder.org, and get more information there. Or you may also find it at Amazon. Okay, we're back. Good to see Epicus over there in the Rumble chat room. Thanks for popping in there. And let's see, we were going to look at this article from Paul Craig Roberts. It is past time for Washington to come to its senses. It appears that the pygmies in Washington, don't mean to give the pygmies a mad name, I have chosen the wrong country for the role of preferred enemy if there is truth to yesterday's reports that Russia has deployed or has in development an orbital nuke platform that can drop nuclear warheads out of orbit without warning and with no chance of interception. Recently I reported on Stephen Starr's new book that 1, 2, or 3 high-altitude blasts, depending on altitude, is all it takes to collapse the U.S. and leave it in total chaos without having to do any ground damage. Brighton's report says the orbital system is live. Russia goes live with orbital nuke platform. Capitol Hill is on edge as multi-megaton warheads threaten the skies. According to sources, Russia has just gone live with an orbital nuke platform that can drop nuclear warheads out of orbit at any time, detonating over key U.S. cities and military bases without warning and with zero chance of being intercepted. Capitol Hill is in panic, describing Russia's new technology as destabilizing and calling for an urgent action to somehow counter Russia's military weapons advantage. The U.S. military, meanwhile, is too busy being woke to build any new technology. Russia has orbital nukes, but the U.S. Navy has drag queens and trannies in charge. Do not wonder how this ends. Other sources collected by Simplicius treat the orbital platform as a threat in process. It is too early to know the truth of these reports or whether this is just another scare story, such as Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction and Muslim terrorists, to gin up new military spending for a replacement threat, now that Russia has won the war in Ukraine. What it does show is the stupidity of a dysfunctional Tower of Babel, such as the United States, picking a fight with a highly functional and unified society such as Russia. America's liberal interventionists, superseded by the hegemonic neoconservatives, have created a dangerous foe for the U.S. that Washington has no chance of defeating. Russia already, with deployed hypersonic ICBMs that randomly alter trajectory in flight, apparently is adding to its dominance weapons fired from space. If Washington cannot bring itself to annoy Israel by expelling the neoconservative from their hold on U.S. foreign policy, the idiot West has run its course. Yeah, I can't say as I disagree with anything Mr. Roberts says in that article about the neocons, the stupid stupid libtards, and yes, being referred to as the idiot West. And that means Washington, D.C. And since the Antichrist owns Washington, D.C., you see how they're never really going to get a cohesive one world order? They're trying their best, though, people. But as the scripture says, that God will have them in derision. And there's plenty of derision going around and more to come. Yes, hopefully we can laugh at some of it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for that. A letter to the American church. Thought this might be interesting. Let's see. Wooden Me said, are you talking about the golden billion? Is that what that says? Okay, well, I'm not sure I know what the golden billion is. A link or some kind of reference would be helpful with that. But anyway, glad to have you in the chat room over there on Rumble. Let's see. Letter to the American Church. I haven't read this letter yet. So this is from Crisis Magazine by Cheryl Colmer. There was a thin window of opportunity in the 1930s Germany to oppose the Nazi regime before it acquired absolute power. I read that line, and that's why I decided to read this article, because just the first line sounded interesting. So, once again, there was a thin window of opportunity in the 1930s Germany to oppose the Nazi regime before it acquired absolute power, and opposition became a death sentence. If Christian pastors had stood as a body united in the gospel and countered the Nazi propaganda in time, how many millions of lives might have been preserved? We have the same narrow window today, before the sash hits the sill. We have already seen pastors and pro-lifers jailed for their resistance to the regime, so we know that the day is far advanced. How much more time do we have? Based on the 2022 book by Eric McTaxis, the one-hour movie, Letter to the American Church, is a ringing call to Christian pastors and bishops to speak up before it's too late. The movie is already being boosted by influencers like Bishop Strickland and Jack I don't know who these people are, who have combined following of over 2.5 million on Twitter X alone. In the early 1930s, German clergy still had a choice. They were not yet at the point that dissent would end in transport to a concentration camp or outright execution. There was a window of opportunity to speak up strongly and stuff the genie back into the bottle before it marched iron boot shod over all. The window closed extremely quickly, just days after Hitler was installed as Chancellor of Germany. Dietrich Bonhoeffer broadcasted an argument against Christians regarding the Fuhrer as Messiah, a movement strongly afoot in 1933. The radio signal was cut in midstream. Okay? That was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. You see the movie. Broadcasted an argument against Christians regarding the Fuhrer as a Messiah. Were there Christians doing that? The radio signal was cut midstream. A month after Bonhoeffer was switched off, a fire was set to the Reichstag, blamed on dissidents and used to suspend civil liberties. It was conveniently timed to rid Hitler of pesky opponents. The parallel with our own country is obvious. When those who lust after power need a reason to throw their opponents under the steamroller, they are not above instigating one. A month after that, the Enabling Act was passed, consolidating power in one man, Adolf Hitler. That same month, Dachau, the infamous concentration camp north of Munich, was built. It was already filled with 27,000 dissidents before the year 1933 ended. As soon as Hitler had absolute power, he also had the means to silence critics. That's how fast the window closed in Germany. It was a matter of months. Even so, the Barmen Declaration was circulated in 1934, attempting to assert the independence of the church from the state. Around one-third of German Protestant pastors had signed the document. Then about half deserted the cause under persecution. So 80% of the entire Protestant leadership in Germany remained silent in the face of one of the most egregious evils in world history. And had to go to the original article here. If I could. Okay, Okay, I'm not going to do that yet. I want to finish reading that article. Now if I can find out where I left off. Even so, the Barmen Declaration was circulated in 1934, attempting to assert the independence of the church from the state. Around one-third of German Protestant pastors had signed the document. Then about half deserted the cause under persecution. So 80% of the entire Protestant leadership in Germany remained silent in the face of one of the most egregious evils in world history. Yes, and we know that the Catholic Church joined Hitler, so that's why. But the Protestants, remained silent, 80%. Into that depressing silence came the Reich Church, the creation of the National Socialists to absorb the thousands of German Protestant churches and supplant Christian preaching with approved Nazi philosophy, kind of like what's going on in China today. A few courageous pastors like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Martin Niemöller didn't have nearly the influence to stop the steal. It is Metaxas's contention that only a united Christian church could have stalled the Nazi machine, and the church failed. It doesn't look likely that our government, as bad as it is, will take legal control of our churches as Germany did. Knock on wood. Especially considering the proliferation of independent Protestant sects. But the rise of cultural Marxism, which has all but swept Christianity off the field of play, has established virtual control nearly as complete. Marxism tramples over the prone bodies of family, religion, and property. Footage from BLM riots, homosexual parades, men and women's sports, and drag queen story hours show how far advanced the program is. And the church is silent. Is it? When Roe v. Wade was finally overturned, one of the greatest events of this century so far, there was silence from the clergy. There was an equally blank reaction to the experimental, gene-altering brew that was subtly force-injected into two-thirds of the American population. Inexplicable, complicit silence. According to the film, pastors have a fiduciary duty toward their flock. Like a trustee, a pastor owes duties of care, loyalty, good faith, confidentiality, prudence, and disclosure. Can anyone reasonably argue that pastors as a whole are mindful of these duties, even though a millstone hangs backstage? Metaxas states that the only one-third of the Christian pastors in the U.S. hold a biblical worldview. If the criterion is wholehearted allegiance to Jesus Christ and his gospel, I'd have to agree. I would even conclude that he's being a bit optimistic. Do you need more than one hand to count the homilies you've heard about carrying your cross, sacrifice, chastity, the virtues, Christian marriage, sin, or judgment? And how many total homilies have you heard in your lifetime? The resulting fraction is infinitesimal. Infinitesimal? Yes. We need a united front of Christian pastors if we are to have any hope of reversing our losses. It's not enough for one Bonhoeffer or one Strickland to speak up. The striking parallels with Germany of the 30s warns us that the dominoes can fall lightning fast. This is the hour of the American church, and the hour will not drag on for long. This movie may wake up and hearten those pastors with at least the residue of goodwill and unite Christians behind them. We still have a sliver of time. The trailer is here, he says. Okay, I'll copy that link and put it in our chat room so you guys can check that out. I haven't seen it yet, but okay, chat room number 1. And you guys can check this out yourself. I think I'll try to take the time to see it. The movie can be rented, and subscribers can log in and pay. So anyway, hopefully it's worthwhile. Let's see, what is this website that we've gone to? Crisis Magazine, a letter to the American Church, a film based on the best-selling book. Yeah, so there you go. Check it out, Crisis Magazine. I might have to check out this magazine. Sounds like, see, top articles on crisis, the false Christ of the chosen, the false Christianity of he gets us, facing the peril of docetism. Not sure I know what that is. Oh, but might have to look up another word. So there's that. I'm gonna leave that tab open so I can check that trailer out later. Maybe the movie. Yes, we'll see what happens there. Let's see. What do we got here going on in the chat rooms? No Bucks SMT. John is back. Good to see you here, John. And Voodoo on Me. Has a lot to say in the Rumble chat room over there. I hope he's not chatting by himself, because he sure got a lot to say. Yes. Jesus has not drawn the line to choose a side. Jesus stood the line, and all who had crossed. Okay, not sure I'm getting that. I know not, nor do I recognize a God or the gods that would expect or demand I should bend or bow, rather the God that truly knows me, and I acknowledge and know, demand and command I stand. Okay. Oh, the epic times. I agree. We are to share the truth when we know it, which is not a matter for belief or religion, but reality when understood correctly. Yes, I can say amen to that much. Okay. Well, that was a good one. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. How would a post-apocalyptic society function without electricity and running water? So let's say the Russians do have a platform with nuclear weapons on them. I don't know. I'm not sure. Because I think there's a lot of hoaxing to the whole nuclear thing going on. I know we have nuclear power, but yeah. So I wish there was more information on that front. Yes, indeed. And Vood on Me has a lot to say. You can Skype me, Vood on Me, and I'll let you say it online. I mean, on the air. You can Skype me at Nicholas Arthur, and you can be my guest for half an hour sometime on the broadcast if you so want to, because I really want this broadcast to be more of a fellowship, which means that the listeners out there can participate at times. And I have a text number right here below me, and you can text me at any time, whether I'm live or not. Anytime you're watching the program is fine. But if you'd like to be my guest or spend a half hour talking about a certain topic, let me know and I'll arrange it. You can be my guest. Skype you right here and put your face right on the air next to mine, or just your voice, whatever you prefer. And we'd have to at least have an email conversation before that would happen, though, or if you wanted to be a guest. But it would be great to get to know someone better and spend a little more time. Okay, let's see. Okay, how would a post-apocalyptic society function without electricity and running water? Okay, a lot of people, there are people out there saying, oh, if they did that and the power wouldn't go off, 90% of America would die. No, they wouldn't. I mean, why would 90% of the people die? Yeah, that's crazy talk. That's what unthinking people or fear-mongering people would want you to believe. Oh no, I better buy whatever it is they're selling. Look at this powdery, freeze-dried stuff. Yeah, that turns into a gorgeous meal. All you got to do is add water. And here 20 years later go, what's this powdery stuff? Is this really edible? Yeah. Okay. All right, let's see. For a person to thrive without it, okay, there were still many people in America. Okay, yeah. There were still many people in America who didn't have electricity and running water well into the 1940s. I remember that. Well, I remember the 1950s. So there were even people in the 1950s because, as you all know, if you didn't, and if you didn't know, I was orphaned as a child. And my first memories are living in the country in Hell, Michigan, which is like a northern small town north of Detroit, Michigan. That's because that's where I grew up. But it was Hell, Michigan. I do remember that too. And I remember when I was 4 years old, because I remember my 4th birthday. So that must have been right at the end of my 3rd year. So I remember my 4th birthday, and the mother in the foster home there had asked me what kind of cake I wanted, and I said blue, so I got a blue birthday cake for my birthday. And I don't remember my brother being there because his birthday is 4 days after mine. So we must have been placed separately at that time. I'll have to ask him if he ever talks to me again. That's another story. But anyway, I remember that. And we had an outhouse. There was no running water. And I remember the chickens. We had chicken dinner. And I remember the daddy there. I called him Daddy Bob, I guess. I do remember that. It's a wonder I can remember that much that's my earliest memory of my 4th birthday. Yeah. And that I watched him chop the head off the chicken and let the chicken go and run around the yard. Yeah. And we had that chicken for dinner. So I do remember that. I remember walking the country road to the store that was like, I mean, it seemed like it was miles away, but it was probably maybe a quarter or half a mile away or something. But it was all country. Those are my earliest memories. But yeah, we didn't have, we had outdoor plumbing. They dug a hole in the ground and they set the outhouse over it. Yeah. So I think he gets into that in this article here, or Badge does in this article. Let's see. My mother told of a recurring spring project where all the neighborhood men would get together and help each other dig a new soil pit and move the outhouse from the old pit to the new one. Cover over the old one, then dig up the one from the previous year so the cured soil could now be used as fertilizer. Ta-da! Yeah, so if that happened, that's what we would do. So if you want to get into a business, building outhouses would be a good business to get into if running water and if electricity goes down. If they kill all the power and they can't get it back and it's going to take several years or maybe never return, a good business to go into would be building outhouses. See, it's an opportunity, folks. This brings up an important point, she says. In a modern society where the electricity and water failed, there would be no way to flush toilets, and eventually the sewer pipes would fill up with waste. Modern sewers require a certain flow generated by wastewater to move the waste to the treatment plants. A rainstorm can help, but these don't happen frequently enough to clear the sewers. In any event, the plants would be non-operational, and the stench of sewage backed up sewage would fill the streets. We saw this in Iraq after the water and sewage treatment plants were blown up. The real issue isn't about some few people doing without water or electricity. You can go to Plymouth Plantation or Old Sturbridge Village or Mystic, Connecticut, and see volunteers living in old-fashioned towns just as they did 100, 200, and 400 years ago. The real issue in a post-apocalyptic society is millions of people living without electricity or running water. Now we have a disaster in the making. What happens when you have too many people in an enclosed area without electricity and no running water? Well, we're going to talk about that some more when we get back from these messages. You're listening to me, Nicholas Arthur. This is Far Out with Nick at Night. I'll be back in a few minutes.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Oh, it's hot in here.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Okay, let's see. What happens when you have too many people in an enclosed area without electricity and no running water is that people drink from lakes, ponds, and puddles nearby and defecate and urinate wherever they can, thoroughly polluting any open water worse than it already is, resulting in dysentery and other diseases that would sicken and weaken so many people that death would be rampant. In a society without electricity or running water, it would be hard to maintain running gasoline vehicle efficiently, since gasoline is mostly moved in volume from tanks by electric pumps. It would be possible to keep some vehicles rolling, but much harder to do so, and gasoline would get scarcer, and once again you would have more hardship since most food is shipped to you from very far away. Eventually, some level of privation and hunger would occur. As with dysentery, the people on the margins would be the victims. The aged, infirm, handicapped, autistic, etc. would die in swaths. So this is a worst-case scenario, and a good reason, as I always say, to move out of the city if you can. Because if some kind of a disaster or attack happens and the city loses power and water, electricity and water, yeah, it's trouble. So at least have enough, be able to bug out, have a place to go, have a plan in place or something. I have a plan here. I have fresh water nearby if I can't get it out of my own well, but I have backup batteries and I should be able to get water out of my well. That's pretty important. So, and as far as electricity, I got some backup power, and if I was on total solar, I would have to scale way down to essentials like, a few light bulbs, maybe a computer, and a refrigerator and freezer, and running the pump for water. And then anything we could do beside that would be a bonus. Yeah. It would be more difficult in the wintertime. I certainly wouldn't be able to do this broadcast if that happened, because I just wouldn't have the electricity to spare. So I might have enough electricity to do a small micro FM broadcast, though. Yeah, because that would take 12 volts, and I have a few transmitters around here. And if it came down to that, well, most people, the only radio they would have would be transistor FMs in their automobiles and stuff like that. And people would be scouring for something to listen to. So that would be my plan, to break out the FM broadcaster and start broadcasting. if it came to that. So I got a plan anyway on things I would do, but everything's contingency because you don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, whether you're going to be able to stay where you're at or you're going to bug out. And that reminds me of that dream I had several years ago, which one of these nights I'll have to share with you all. So that's what happens. Any building with more than a few stories in height would have to be abandoned because it would be too difficult to get up to the higher floors, and even when you did, there would be no water or lighting. Buildings would be very dark, especially in corridors and stairwells, and thus unsafe from attack or accident. Eventually, with steam-powered elevators and roof water collection systems, some higher floors might be livable again, but this would be sometime later, since there are very few engineers with the skill to build large-scale, safe steam engines, and all the factories would be dark, with no working machinery and stifling. It's likely that to keep society functioning, the train networks would have to be fully restored, including museum steam trains put back into service. It would be like living in the 1920s with many trains and fewer cars and trucks. The ability to capture and pump water without electricity has been around since the time of the Romans, and later refined by people like Leonardo da Vinci, who invented a screw-powered pump to move water up some great distances. We would have to resort to hand-dug wells and hand pumps to move water again. These methods work for small populations, but the larger population and the more difficult it becomes. Rome, a city of millions of people, was serviced by 14 aqueducts, bringing water into the city, and when the city was sacked, the first thing the attackers did was knock down the aqueducts. Without water, the population was unable to stay in the city and abandoned it, allowing it to be easily invaded. Wells would need to be dug by hand. The Romans dug the deepest human-dug well in Syria. It was 950 feet deep before it struck water. The thing that typically determines the maximum depth of a well is the weight of the rope required to pull a bucket of water up. If the well is too deep, the rope pulls itself apart before it can even bring a single bucket of water to the top. 950 feet. You don't want to be pulling that bucket up. I mean, my water here is 120 feet down, and I don't want to do that by hand. Yeah. And my well is only 6 inches, so you'd have to have a little bucket. Well, you could use a pipe plugged at the bottom a couple feet long and pull it up and down. Yeah. It would have to be a smaller pipe than the pipe you're putting it in to get water out. But something could be fixed up if I didn't have battery power and a 12-volt pump or something. And it's only 120 feet. It's not that deep. But some people have, because I'm here in the land of drought, where there is no... the water, you have to go pretty deep for water here. Yeah, compared to a lot of other places where you have to go 20 or 30 feet deep. My last house here I was right next to the river, so the well only went down like 40 feet, and the water was at 20 feet, but I was like 100 feet from the river, so it was always leaching off and filling the well there. So it depends on where you're at. Anyway, wells would need to be dug by hand, he says. The thing that typically determines the maximum depth of the well is a rope. In the case of a well that is 950 feet deep, the Romans put stages at various levels and required slaves to be at each stage to bring the water up a section at a time. It was an enormous effort to get even a single bucket of water to the surface. I can't even imagine that. That's bizarre. The best word I could think of for a 950-foot well with slaves at stages to help bring the water up at different levels. And without electricity, medicine would go back to the 1700s. We could get rid of most 90, no CAT scans or EKGs or other monitors. Anesthesia would be revert back to simple ether. Operating theaters would have to be lit by the sun or burning magnesium. There would be a resurgence of gas. There would be a resurgence of gas lamps, oil and kerosene lamps. Well, I don't think it's going to go that far, because it would be easier to get the electrical plants up and running to do all this other stuff. It's like there would be a resurgence of gas lamps, oil lamps, kerosene lamps, as long as fun. There would also be many more house fires with little way to extinguish them, since there would be no way to move water except by hand pump or bucket brigade reach the ground, or entire neighborhoods and city blocks burning to the ground. Well, now we get that because of batteries. Yeah, that's a thing now, but probably still not as prominent as fires were from, using fire to light your house. All right. Locks 1 over there in the chat room. Yeah. We never get that here ever since I've been here. If we got 10 or 15 inches, we think we're doing great here. And I don't know, I think we might have got 10 inches already this year. Yeah, we just got a couple inches here in a storm that just, is ongoing right now. There's a little lull in it right now, but it's still ongoing. Okay. Well, everything's working good here. My video feed says everything's running good, so yes, indeed. So anyway, that's an idea there of what it would be like without water and electricity. The cities, it would be very problematic. Out in the rural areas like where I am, it would be much, much less problematic, because I'm pretty much ready for it. And I got lots. Oh, you mean the video stream is frozen? Okay. Well, it's frozen somewhere else, because here it is not. Oh, it is kind of slow, though. I see that. It is much slower than it should be. I wonder why. Now it seems like we're having a lull in our stream here toward the end of the hour here. That's not good. Yeah. Huh. Okay, it's still streaming. It just says that my bit rate is slowed down to about 1/3 of what it's right now. So I don't know what it is. Must be something on the internet that I have no control over. Not much I can do about it. Odyssey just reconnected. Okay, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that, but I already said everything important that I need to say today. So you won't miss much of anything, and some people are still getting it. Personal stations on Weather Underground would have rain totals in various areas. Still talking about, where's this rainforest you live in? I live in a desert myself, or somewhat. It's not a typical desert over here in central California. I live in the foothills off the San Joaquin Valley here. So, but it's a desert-like atmosphere. Yeah, I can see we're dropping a stream, which is unfortunate, but still streaming just at a very low rate. So sorry about that. Sorry about those troubles, but I wish there was something I could do about it. But there's nothing that I can. Okay. Yep, but that was all the articles I had lined up. Shauna says, it's back. The stream is back. So, yeah. Yeah, just stick around. It'll catch up with you. But it'll all be here on the upload, the save stream for people to listen to later on. All right. Comments, questions, anything. The last 10 minutes of the broadcast are yours. I'm handing it to you. This is supposed to be a fellowship kind of deal. Friendship, fellowship gathering at night here. I had Van let's see, somebody in the Rumble chat room, and he was all alone over there. Well, no, Shelly R was in that chat room, and Epicus was in that chat room, but Van and me came in and talked with himself and filled up the whole chat room. And then he left. He says people will just dig holes or pee on trees, he says. Silly, take care. So it's out. He says, I'm out of here. He says, of course, I was messaging you the host. The trouble is with people messaging me and me having to answer them is then I have to read what they say and then I have to say what I say. So it's like twice as much work. See what I mean? I get out of breath. Yeah, if I have to read someone says what someone else says, and then I have to say what I'm going to say in rebuttal or in comment to it, and then they say something, and I have to read it again, what they say, and then I have to, like I said, it's like being two people instead of one, having to do twice as much work. Articles are easy to read. I don't have to answer for someone else. I just have to read the article and comment on it myself. Yeah, it's almost the same thing, isn't it? Yeah. Except articles are written purposefully and they're crafted by someone who took time to craft. No sprinklers, and our grass is green all summer, spring, and part of fall without watering it. Only occasionally water my vegetable garden. Oh, well, that's nice for you. We had nothing here, by the end of summer, nothing was growing here without water.